Hey folks, I'm your friend here. Stop scrolling. I need you to think about something real quick. What if you woke up tomorrow morning? WS. And Tuesday was just gone. Not like a bad Tuesday where you zoned out at work and ate a sad desk sandwich. I mean, gone. Gone. No memory. No texts. No photos. Like the whole day got quietly deleted from your brain while you were sleeping. And what if you were the only one who noticed? Okay, dim the lights. Put your phone face down. Get comfortable under that blanket, because this story, it's going to crawl under your skin real slow, and by the time you realize it's there, it'll already be too late to put it down. Alright, hey, welcome in. Glad you're here. Seriously, pull up a pillow, stretch out, and just pull. Breathe for a second. Tonight we're not doing anything crazy, no jump scares, no running, nobody's going to scream at you. We're just going to take a slow, quiet walk into one of the strangest little towns you've never heard of. And by the end of this, I promise you're going to look at your calendar a little differently. So, let's talk about Millhaven, Illinois. Population 4,211 people. That number, by the way, hasn't changed in about 9 years. Not up, not down, just 4,211. Which is either a very boring coincidence or the kind of detail that makes a statistician wake up in a cold sweat at 3 in the morning. But hey, we'll get there. Millhaven sits about 2 hours south of Chicago. If you've ever driven down I-55 and noticed a water tower shaped slightly like a fire hydrant poking up over the tree line, that's the one. Most people drive right past it. Most people don't stop. And honestly, most people are probably better off for it. It's one of those towns that feels like it was built sometime in the 1950s and then just forgot to keep updating. Main Street has a diner, a hardware store, a post office that's only open on Tuesday, Thursday, and when Janet feels like it. There's a church on every other corner, a Dollar General on the edge of town, and a little local newspaper called the Millhaven Courier that comes out once a week and mostly covers high school football scores and whose dog got into whose garden. It's quiet. It's flat. It smells like corn and diesel fuel and just a little bit of something you can't name. And for most of the year, nothing happens there. But every single Wednesday morning, the town of Millhaven wakes up. And Tuesday is just gone, not metaphorically, not like a bad hangover where the night gets blurry. I mean, every single resident of that town opens their eyes on Wednesday morning and the last thing they remember is Monday night, Monday dinner, Monday TV, Monday going to bed, and then Wednesday, just like that. A full day, wiped clean. Nobody panics about it. That's the first thing that'll get you. They don't scream. They don't call 911. They just kind of shrug, make coffee, go to work, act like everything is completely normal because to them it is. It always has been. The kids go to school, the farmers check their fields. Janet opens the post office if she's in the mood, and nobody, not a single soul in that town, stops to wonder where Tuesday went. Except for one person. And that person wasn't even from Millhaven. Her name was Claire Novak, 34 years old. Staff writer for a mid-sized Chicago magazine called the Great Lakes Review, the kind of publication that's too serious to be a lifestyle mag, but not quite serious enough to win a Pulitzer. They covered city politics, regional history, the occasional human interest piece. Claire had been there 6 years and was starting to feel that slow, quiet burn of, is this it? That hits a lot of people in their mid-30s. She was sharp. She was stubborn. She had a coffee order that was 3 sentences long, and she was not apologetic about it. And she had this habit of pulling at loose threads until the whole sweater unraveled, which made her either an excellent journalist or a nightmare at parties, depending on who you asked. She drove into Millhaven on a Tuesday. The assignment was supposed to be simple. A feature piece on small Midwestern towns that were quietly losing population. Ghost towns in slow motion, her editor called them, the kind of story that gets shared on Facebook by people who grew up in places like Millhaven and moved away and now feel guilty about it. 3 days, a handful of interviews, some nice photos of empty storefronts, done. She checked into the Millhaven Motor Inn. Room 7. A room that smelled strongly of pine air freshener and mildly of regret. She unpacked her bag, set up her laptop, called her editor to confirm she'd arrived, and then went down to the diner for dinner. The diner was called Patty's, which, as far as diners go, is basically the law in towns like this. It had vinyl booths in a shade of green that had been out of style since 1987, a pie case with 4 different pies under a glass dome, and a counter with stools where 3 older men sat every single night and argued about things that had already been decided years ago. Claire ordered coffee and a turkey melt and pulled out her notebook. She noticed a few things right away. The people were nice, too nice maybe, in that specific Midwestern way where someone tops off your coffee before you even ask and then calls you hun, and you can't tell if it's genuine warmth or if they're just running on autopilot. But they were pleasant, smiled a lot, asked where she was from. She told them Chicago. They all made the same face. That face people make when you say you're from Chicago if you live anywhere south of it, like you just told them you commute from a war zone. She ate her sandwich. She took some notes. She went back to her room and she slept. And then she woke up and it was Wednesday. She checked her phone. Wednesday. She sat up in bed and frowned. She could have sworn it was still early Tuesday night when she went to sleep. She'd only been there a few hours. She hadn't even started her interviews yet. She looked at her notes. Tuesday's date was at the top of the page. Her pen had stopped mid-sentence. Just a half-finished thought about the diner and the pie case and the 3 men at the counter. She had no memory of the rest of Tuesday night. She figured she was more tired than she thought. Long drive, bad sleep lately, probably just crashed hard. She grabbed her camera and went out to start working. And that's when she started noticing things. The first thing she noticed was the flowers. There was a flower box outside the hardware store. She was pretty sure it had been empty when she drove in Tuesday afternoon. Now it was full. Petunias and something purple she couldn't name, freshly planted, soil still dark and damp. She took a photo of it and moved on. The second thing was the hardware store owner himself, a man named Gerald Pratt. 60-something, big arms, the kind of handshake that makes you reconsider your life choices. She'd made a note to interview him, and when she went in and introduced herself, he looked at her with absolutely no recognition, which was fine. They hadn't met, except on the corner of his counter there was a coffee mug that said Chicago, Chicago, that toddling town, and when she commented on it, he said, "Oh, yeah, somebody from Chicago was just in here yesterday and left that." Claire looked at the mug. She did not own a mug like that. She asked him what the person looked like. Gerald shrugged. Young woman, dark hair, had a camera bag, I think. Claire had dark hair. Claire had a camera bag, she said. Was her name Claire? Gerald looked at her funny. You know, I can't remember her name. Isn't that strange? I can picture her clear as day, but her name just... I can't place it. Claire wrote that down and moved on. She told herself it was a coincidence. The mug was probably already there. Gerald was probably misremembering. Small towns had a lot of women with dark hair and camera bags, probably. Well, maybe not. But still, she kept interviewing people. She talked to a retired teacher named Donna, who told her Millhaven was the best place she'd ever lived and she'd never leave. She talked to a guy at the gas station who fixed her windshield wiper for free and wouldn't hear anything about being paid. She talked to a teenage kid on a bike who gave her directions to the park like she was a local who already knew most of the way. "You've been to the park before, right?" he said. "The bench by the old oak." "No," Claire said. "I just got here yesterday." He looked at her strangely. "Oh?" I thought. "Never mind." She wrote that down too. By the end of Wednesday, she had a notebook full of small, weird moments. None of them huge, all of them slightly off, like a photo that's almost in focus. And she had a feeling she'd been trying to ignore since that morning. A feeling like standing in a place you've never been and somehow knowing which way to turn. Like the town was familiar in a way she couldn't explain and didn't like. She went back to the diner that night, sat in the same booth, ordered the same coffee. The waitress, a middle-aged woman named Sue, looked at her and smiled. "Back again," Sue said. "I was here last night," Claire said, "for the first time." Sue tilted her head. "Hon, you've been in here before. I remember your order. I just arrived yesterday." Sue just smiled in that way. People smile when they've decided to stop arguing. "Okay, hon. Coffee, black, and the turkey melt?" Claire stared at her. "That's right," she said quietly. She ate her food. She went back to her room. She sat on the edge of the bed and opened her laptop and did something she probably should have done as soon as she arrived. She searched for Millhaven, Illinois missing Tuesday, and the results were nothing. Absolutely nothing weird. Town website, local news archive, a forum post from 2019 on some local community board asking why the post office was closed on a Tuesday, which turned out to be a holiday no one had planned around. She searched Millhaven, Illinois, strange, and got a travel blog that called it charmingly frozen in time and gave the diner 4 out of 5 stars. She searched Millhaven, Illinois, memory loss. Nothing. She closed her laptop. She looked at the ceiling, and she fell asleep. And then she woke up, and it was Wednesday again. Same date. Wednesday. She stared at her phone for a full 30 seconds. She had gone to sleep on Wednesday night. She had woken up on Wednesday morning. She had lost Tuesday again. This time she got up fast. Her notebook was on the nightstand. She flipped to the last entry. It was the notes from her first Wednesday, the Gerald Pratt interview, the coffee mug, the kid on the bike, all of it. Nothing from her second Tuesday, nothing from Wednesday night. She went to the window and looked outside. The flower box was full. Fresh soil, still damp. She grabbed her camera and checked the photos. She had shots from her drive-in, the water tower, a couple of Main Street storefronts, the diner exterior, and then a gap, a full gap in the photo timestamps. From Tuesday evening to Wednesday morning, nothing. Like the camera had just been sitting untouched on the dresser. She put the camera down slowly. She thought about this for a long moment, and then, because she was a journalist and this was literally the most interesting thing that had ever happened in her career, she did not pack her bags and leave. She got dressed, grabbed her coffee, and went back out into town. This time she was going to pay attention to everything. The town felt different on this Wednesday, not visually, not in any way you could photograph, but there was a quality to it, a particular kind of stillness, like the moment right before a song starts. Like everything was just slightly holding its breath. She went back to Gerald at the hardware store. This time she paid attention to his eyes when she walked in. There was a flicker, just for a second. A half second of something, recognition or confusion or both, that passed over his face before the friendly shopkeeper expression clicked back on. "Morning," he said. She looked at the counter. No coffee mug. "Was there a mug here yesterday?" she asked. "Chicago mug. You mentioned someone had left it." Gerald frowned. "Don't think so. I'd remember that. My wife's from Chicago. I'd have kept it." She smiled and nodded and wrote it down. She went to the diner. Sue was there. Sue smiled. "First time in?" Sue said. Claire almost laughed. "Yes," she said. "First time. Welcome to Millhaven, hon. Coffee?" "Black," Claire said, "and a turkey melt." She watched Sue not react. No flicker of recognition. No, "You've been in here before." Just a normal, pleasant woman taking a normal order from what appeared to be a perfectly normal first-time customer. Claire sat in her booth and thought. Something was resetting, not just in her head, in the whole town. Every Wednesday morning, the whole town came back online, with Tuesday deleted. Cleanly, neatly, like someone was running a nightly rollback on a system they didn't want you to notice. The question was, what happened on Tuesdays, and why couldn't she remember either? She started keeping records in a way she'd never done before. Not just notes, voice memos, time-stamped, photos of everything, including her notebook pages. She bought a cheap watch from the gas station and set it running just to track the hours. She made a rule. Every night before sleep she recorded a voice memo. Her name, the date, where she was, what she'd learned. If Tuesday was going to be taken from her, she was going to make sure she had a paper trail that survived it. And on her third Wednesday morning, she woke up and played back her voice memos. There were 2 new ones. The first was from Tuesday morning. Her own voice, calm and clear. She was summarizing what she'd found so far. The Gerald thing, the kid on the bike, Sue at the diner. She sounded alert, focused, working through it like a story. The second was from Tuesday night, and this one was different. Her voice was low, almost a whisper, And she sounded. Thousand scared, not screaming scared, the quiet kind, the kind where you're trying not to make noise. The memo was 47 seconds long. She listened to it 3 times. This is what it said. Okay, it's Tuesday, late, maybe 2 in the morning. I'm in my room. I followed someone tonight, from the diner. I'm not going to say the name yet in case. I don't know. Just in case. But I went somewhere I shouldn't have. Out past the East Road. There's something out there, Claire. I mean, it's not a monster or whatever. It's not that. It's a building. And the lights were on. And there were people inside. And I think they know. I think some of them know what's happening. I think they're doing it. I'm going to go back tomorrow and... Okay, wait. Someone's walking outside. I'm going to stop recording. The memo ended. Claire sat in her quiet Motor Inn room in the grey Wednesday morning light, holding her phone. She was the someone in the voice memo. She had discovered something on Tuesday night, something that scared her enough to whisper, something she didn't even trust to her own recording, and now she couldn't remember any of it. But she'd left herself a trail. She got dressed, grabbed her car keys, and drove out to the East Road. The East Road didn't look like much, which, honestly, is the first sign that something out there is probably exactly what you think it is. Because, in Claire's experience, the creepy stuff never announces itself. It never has flashing lights and a sign that says, DE finitely, something wrong here. It's always just a quiet road, some gravel, some flat brown fields, and a tree line that goes on a little too long. She drove slow. The road stretched out east of town, past the edge of the last subdivision, past a water retention pond that was more mud than water, past a grain elevator that hadn't run in years, judging by the rust on its sides. And then she saw it. A building. Low and long, like a repurposed warehouse or a very large single-story office. No sign on the outside, no company name, no address number, nothing. Just a plain cinder block exterior painted a grey so bland it practically begged you to forget you saw it. There were no lights on. It was 9 in the morning. She pulled over about 100 yards away and sat in her car with the engine off. She took out her notebook and wrote down the coordinates from her phone's GPS. She took photos of the building through the windshield. She wrote down every detail she could see. The single metal door on the front, the small parking lot with 4 vehicles currently in it, the row of ventilation units on the roof running the whole length of the building. It looked like a tech facility, or a utility substation, or the kind of place that processes things the government would rather not put on a map. She drove back to town. She was not going to knock on that door alone. She was a journalist, not a horror movie protagonist. There was a difference. Mostly. She went back to her room and listened to her Tuesday night memo again. Every word. I think some of them know. I think they're doing it. Who was them? She thought about everyone she'd talked to in the previous Wednesdays, the flicker she'd seen in Gerald's eyes. The way the kid on the bike had said, "You've been to the park before, right?" and then corrected himself. The way the whole town ran on a kind of pleasant, well-oiled routine that never wavered, never got ruffled. She thought about the population number, 4,211, unchanged for 9 years. She started making a list. She wrote down every person she had spoken to, and next to each name she put a question. Did they seem surprised to see her? Did they seem like they recognized her? Were there any slips, any moments where the routine cracked? There were 3 names on her list that felt different from the rest. Gerald Pratt. That flicker in his eyes. The kid on the bike, whose name she still didn't know. And a woman she hadn't even had a real conversation with. A woman she'd seen twice, both times standing outside the post office, watching the street. Older. 70s maybe. Silver hair pulled back, still in a way that wasn't relaxed. It was the stillness of someone paying attention. She didn't smile when Claire walked past. She didn't wave. She just watched. Claire had noted her both times, but hadn't approached her. There was something about her that said not yet, but she was starting to think not yet had become right now. She found the woman outside the post office at 11 that morning. Same spot, same stillness, same careful eyes moving over Main Street like she was reading something the rest of the town couldn't see. Claire walked up and introduced herself. Claire Novak. I'm a writer from Chicago. The woman looked at her for a long moment, and then, very quietly, she said, I know who you are. She said it like she'd been waiting to say it. Her name was Edna Marsh. She'd lived in Millhaven her entire life. 73 years. Born in the house she still lived in, 2 blocks off Main. She had a voice like dry leaves and eyes the color of winter sky, and she did not waste a single word. She said, walk with me. They walked. Down a side street, away from Main, into a neighborhood of old bungalows and overgrown garden beds and chain-link fences with morning glory climbing up them. Edna walked at a pace that was unhurried but purposeful, and she didn't speak until they were well away from the main street. Then she said, How many Wednesdays have you had so far? Claire stopped walking. Edna did not stop. She just looked back over her shoulder. Keep moving! Claire caught up. 3, she said. I think 3. Edna nodded. Like that number meant something. Most people make it out before 3, she said. You're either very stubborn or you found something you needed to find. What's happening to this town? Claire said. Edna was quiet for a moment. They turned down a smaller street, more overgrown, and stopped in front of a house with a porch swing and a garden that was more wildflowers than design. Come inside, Edna said. The inside of Edna's house was exactly what you'd expect. Books on every surface, a cat that appeared out of nowhere and immediately judged Claire. Mismatched furniture, a kitchen that smelled like coffee that had been on the burner a little too long. Edna poured 2 cups without asking and sat down at the kitchen table. Claire sat across from her. How much do you know? Edna said. Claire told her everything. The mug, the kid on the bike, the voice memos, the building on the East Road. Edna listened to all of it without expression. Then she put both hands around her coffee cup and looked at the table and said, The building. You found it already. What is it? Edna was quiet for a long time. It started about 12 years ago, she finally said. There was a company. Never said exactly what they did. Tech, they told the town council. Data infrastructure. They wanted to set up a facility outside of town. Quiet location, low population, stable infrastructure. They offered the town a deal. Money for the school, money for the roads, money for the fire department that hadn't had a new truck in 15 years. She paused. This town needed money. Bad, so the council said yes. Claire wrote it down. What were they actually building, she said. We didn't know, not at first. Edna's jaw tightened slightly. They called it a signal relay station. We figured it was cell towers or internet infrastructure, nothing alarming, and for the first year it was fine. The money came in, the roads got fixed, the school got new computers, people were happy. Claire could feel where this was going, slowly, like water starting to pull before a current shows itself. And then, she said. Edna looked up. And then we started forgetting Tuesdays. She said it completely flat, like a woman who had been sitting with something terrible for a very long time and was no longer surprised by it. It was gradual at first. People thought they were just tired, stressed. Some people went to doctors in other towns, got tests done, came back fine, perfectly fine. No neurological damage, nothing in the blood work. Completely healthy people who just couldn't remember Tuesdays. When did people figure out it was the whole town? Most people never figured it out, Edna said. That's the thing. When everyone around you has the same gap in their memory, nobody flags it as a gap. It's just normal. They wake up Wednesday and it's Wednesday. That's all they know. She leaned back in her chair. The cat jumped onto the table and she moved it to the floor without breaking eye contact with Claire. But you figured it out, Claire said. I'm a stubborn old woman, Edna said. Completely deadpan. I keep a diary, have for 50 years, never missed a day. Started noticing the blank pages, Tuesdays, blank, every week. Started keeping records, timers. Notes to myself, same as you sounds like. The tools we used were different. The conclusion was the same. She folded her hands on the table. Whatever that building is running, it's not a relay station. It's something else. Something that broadcasts over this whole town on Tuesdays and wipes the day clean before morning, like resetting a hard drive. Claire sat back in her chair. She was thinking about the voice memo. I think they're doing it. Why Tuesdays, she said. Edna shook her head. Don't know. Maybe that's just when they run, whatever they run. Maybe there's a reason. Maybe it's arbitrary. I stopped trying to find a reason. The what matters more than the why at this point. Who runs the building? Edna's expression shifted, just slightly. A tightening around the eyes. There's one name I know, she said. One person in this town who I'm fairly sure has always known. Someone on the original town council. Someone who signed the agreement. She looked at Claire directly. Gerald Pratt. Claire thought about the flicker in his eyes. The way his expression had done that half-second thing before the shopkeeper's smile clicked on. He knows what's happening, Claire said. I think he's known from the beginning, Edna said. I think he's one of several people in town who were brought into whatever agreement was made, and I think part of that agreement involved keeping the rest of the town stable. Happy. Unquestioning. And the signal makes that easy, doesn't it? One day a week, whatever people discover or suspect or stumble across, gone. Gone by Wednesday. She looked at Claire. Except you came in from outside. You had no Tuesday morning in this town, no years of slow recalibration. Your brain fights it harder. and you're stubborn enough to keep records. Or unlucky enough, Claire said quietly. Edna almost smiled. Same thing sometimes. Claire spent the rest of that Wednesday thinking. She sat in her car on a back street with the windows cracked and the notebook on her lap, and she thought hard about what she was actually dealing with. Let's be real about something. She was a magazine writer from Chicago. She covered city council drama and regional history pieces. She was not, in any technical sense, equipped to go up against a mysterious tech company running some kind of memory erasure signal from a cinder block building outside a small Illinois town. She was also not the kind of person who drove 2 hours from Chicago, found the weirdest story she'd ever encountered, and then decided to go home and take a bath. She was absolutely not that person. But she needed more. She needed to get inside that building, or find documentation, or find someone who would talk on the record. Voice memos and a diary from a 73-year-old woman were compelling, personally. Professionally, they were the beginning of something, not the end. She needed to get through a Tuesday conscious and functional and able to bring something back. That night, she recorded a voice memo, a long one, all the detail, all of Edna's account, the building, Gerald, all of it. She took photos of every page of her notebook and emailed them to herself. She wrote a long email to her editor with the subject line, "Saving this for reference, ignore for now." She packed everything she might need into her shoulder bag so she wouldn't have to look for anything in the morning. And then she did something she hadn't done before. She set a timer for every 45 minutes throughout the night. If something was going to erase Tuesday, she was going to be awake for as much of it as possible. She set her first alarm for 1 in the morning. She closed her eyes. The alarm went off at 1. She sat up. She was in her room. It was dark. Her phone said Tuesday, 1:14 a.m. She recorded a voice memo. Name, date, location, what she knew. She set the next alarm and lay back down. The alarm went off at 1:45. She was in her room. Dark. Tuesday, 1:47. Voice memo. She set the next alarm. The alarm went off. She sat up. The room felt different. Not the temperature, not the furniture. Something else. Something she couldn't name for several seconds while she sat there blinking in the dark, trying to locate the wrongness. And then she realized she couldn't hear the road. There was a state highway about half a mile from the motel. Not busy, but at night you could always just barely catch the distant rhythm of the occasional truck going through. She'd learned to sleep through it. It was gone. Complete silence, and the silence had a quality to it, not the silence of a quiet night, the silence of something paused, like a recording that had been stopped mid-play. She looked at her phone. The screen was dark. She pressed the button. Nothing. She held the button down. Nothing. She got up and went to the window and looked out through the gap in the curtains. The parking lot light was off. Every light on Main Street visible from her window was off. The entire town was dark. And in that darkness, on the far eastern edge, past the roof lines and the water tower, there was a faint pulse of something. Not quite light, not exactly, more like the space where light should have been, warming slightly and then cooling again, a slow, deep rhythm. Like breathing, she watched it for a long time. Then she grabbed her bag and her keys and she went outside. The air was cold and still and completely silent. She stood in the motel parking lot and listened. Nothing, not a car, not a dog, not a cricket. Like the whole world had been turned down to zero. Her car started, which surprised her. The headlights came on. She sat in the glow of them for a second and took a breath, and then she drove toward the east road. She drove slow and kept her headlights off after the first quarter mile. She didn't want to announce herself. The building was lit from the inside, not bright, a low, even glow through what must have been frosted windows she hadn't noticed in the daytime. And the ventilation units on the roof were running. All of them. She could feel it more than hear it. A frequency at the edge of hearing, like standing next to a massive transformer. A vibration in her back teeth. She parked and got out. She got about 50 feet from the building and then stopped, because the door was open, not wide, just a few inches. Like someone had gone through and let it close, but it hadn't fully latched. She stood there in the dark looking at that door. She thought about every horror movie where the door is open. She thought about her voice memo from 2 Tuesdays ago saying there were people inside. She thought about Edna's face when she said Gerald Pratt's name. She thought about 4,211 people who would wake up in a few hours and have no idea this night had happened. She walked to the door. She pushed it open. Inside was a long corridor lit by those low-level emergency-style strip lights along the floor. The vibration was stronger here, much stronger. Her chest felt it. And there, about 30 feet down the corridor, sitting in a plastic chair against the wall like he was waiting for a bus that had been delayed by 12 years, was Gerald Pratt. He looked up when she walked in. He didn't look surprised. He looked tired, just enormously, deeply tired. The way a person looks when they've been carrying something heavy for much longer than they should have had to. He said, "I had a feeling you'd make it through." Claire stood in the doorway. "What is this place?" she said. Gerald looked at the floor. He clasped his hands together, and he said, in a voice that sounded like a man who had been waiting 12 years to say this to someone, it was supposed to be a test. He paused. "They told us it was a communications infrastructure project, federal contractor, but the kind that doesn't show up in any government directory you'd find online. They needed a small, stable, low-visibility location to run a long-term signal trial, and they needed local cooperation to keep people from asking questions." "What kind of signal trial?" He looked up at her. "Memory consolidation," he said. That's what they called it. They had a theory that human memory is partly electromagnetic in nature, that certain low-frequency signals broadcast at sufficient scale could interrupt the encoding process, keep short-term memories from converting to long-term ones. They said it was for. They said the applications were for treating trauma, PTSD, people who couldn't